This is Carolina Ghost Towns, a podcast about the vanished towns and lost communities in South Carolina, North Carolina, and maybe a few other places. I'm your host, Tom Taylor. Welcome to Season 3 of Carolina Ghost Towns. First, a personal update. We're finally back in our house. I'm still working out how I'm going to set up my podcast studio, but at least some things are back to normal. The first two episodes of this season, I'm focusing on forts. Many towns in the early days of the United States started out as military outposts. Early settlers needed protection, either from Native Americans or from colonists from competing nations. It may not have been an official fort, but just a strong house or a stockade where settlers could take refuge. Some of these developed into towns. Some faded into obscurity. Just think about how many modern towns have the word fort in them. Fort Worth, Texas, Fort Pierce, Florida, Old Fort, North Carolina, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Fort Collins, Colorado, and many more than I can list here. The GeoNames database lists nearly 100 place names with the word fort in them in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Today, we head down to Calhoun County in South Carolina to a fort that played a part in the Revolutionary War and gave rise to a legend. Today, we take a look at Fort Motte. The Cherokee Path ran through this area, connecting Charleston and its plantations with the upstate. One of the first settlements along this path was Ameliatown, established in 1735. Like so many of the early South Carolina towns, this was a town in name only. A town plat was laid out, and lots sold. However, many of these lots were bought by speculators from Charleston who had no intention of moving. In the 1740s, a group of Swiss-German settlers came to the area, settling in Orangeburg, Saxagotha Township, and Ameliatown. Amelia never became a town, but served as more of an administrative and judicial district for the area planters. One of those planters was Miles Brewton, who was also a slave trader. In 1767, Brewton built Mount Joseph Plantation, just west of the confluence of the Congaree and Wateree rivers. On the eve of the American Revolution, Brewton was on his way to Philadelphia to serve as a representative of the Second Continental Congress when he and his entire family were lost at sea. His sister, Rebecca Brewton Motte, inherited Mount Joseph Plantation in 1775. As armed conflicts increased between the British and Americans, the British confiscated Miles Brewton's house and fortified it. A garrison moved into the house, and Rebecca Motte moved into the overseer's house on the property. According to Wikipedia,
by May 1781, the British had constructed wood and earth fortifications at Mount Joseph. 9-foot-tall palisades and 10-foot-wide ramparts were faced with a 6-foot-deep ditch in front. 20 to 30 feet from the ditch was a row of trees bound with wires. Defending the fortified mansion were 184 British regulars, Hessians, and provincials under the command of Lieutenant Donald McPherson. It became known as Fort Motte after Rebecca Brewton Motte.
Later that same year, 1781, General Francis Marion and Colonel Henry Lee laid siege to Fort Motte. They offered terms of surrender to McPherson, but he held out, hoping for reinforcements from Camden. Marion and Lee couldn't wait for that to happen, so they asked Rebecca Motte for permission to set her house on fire. According to legend, Motte not only gave permission, but gave the Patriots, quote, African bow and arrows, close quote, that had belonged to her late husband. These would be set aflame and shot at the roof of the plantation house. At noon on May 10th, the flaming arrows flew toward the dry roof. When the British came out to extinguish the flames, they were met with musket fire and grape shot. The British and Loyalists surrendered, and together with the Patriots, they were able to put the fire out and save the house. Afterwards, Rebecca Motte treated the officers from both sides to a dinner at the plantation. A dinner that was interrupted by Colonel Lee's men hanging 3 Loyalists on the plantation grounds. Even with the capture of the British garrison, the area was still called Fort Motte. Robert Mill's 1825 Atlas of South Carolina shows the location of the fort in what was then Orangeburg County. As of 1825, there was no town, but it was an ideal location for one. Fort Motte was near the confluence of the Congaree and Wateree rivers. Later, the Columbia branch of the Charleston Railroad came through the area. A town did spring up not far from Rebecca Motte's plantation. By 1847, a post office was established at Fort Motte. According to an article in the Charleston Mercury,
I beg leave to state through your journal, which has much circulation in this neighborhood, that on application the Postmaster General has promptly established a post office on the railroad from Charleston to Columbia at Fort Motte, the old place of Revolutionary memory, and that it went into operation this day. The post office is within 2 or 3 miles of the river where the railroad crosses it.
Along with the railroad depot, stores soon followed. I tried looking through news archives to see if there were any articles about the town. There were several articles about railroad accidents, but the one that caught my eye was an 1856 story in the Charleston Mercury about a fire that burned the post office and a store.
Fire at Fort Motte. It is with much regret that we have just learned that the dwelling house, store, and post office at Fort Motte were all destroyed by fire on Friday night, the 11th, about 12 o'clock. Mr. David W. Barsh, postmaster and owner of the store, had retired to bed with his family and with great difficulty escaped the burning flames with their lives, not even having time to save their clothing, which they had taken off when retiring to bed. Mrs. Barsh, in running through the snow with her infant in her arms to a near neighbor's house without her shoes on, it is thought is badly frostbitten. We understand it was evidently the work of an incendiary, as there were signs discovered leading to that conclusion. In this sad event, Mr. Barsh has lost nearly everything that he possessed in the world, there being no insurance whatever.
As the Civil War approached, the news articles were about communities in Orangeburg County seeking volunteers for local militias. The Fort Motte Rangers tapped into the area's Revolutionary War history for their recruitment, creating a large banner depicting Rebecca Motte handing flaming arrows to one of Francis Marion's men. The town made it through the Civil War without damage from Sherman's march to the sea, but it wasn't free from racial divisions. Post-Reconstruction and the rise of Ben Tillman brought about some of the same violence that affected Hamburg, Phoenix, and Ellington from previous episodes. The news reported bands of, quote, armed freemen roaming the region, close quote, and reports of shootings and even a, quote, riot, close quote, in 1896. In 1874, the town of Fort Motte was officially incorporated, and an election was held for town council and warden. In 1875, Bradstreet Report listed 8 general stores in the town. It had all the hallmarks of a thriving, rural farming town. That was soon to change, though. Bradstreet reported in 1920 that there were 9 general stores. By 1942, there were only 3 stores, according to the same Bradstreet report. So, what happened? It's a tale common to many of these southern towns, and one I've covered in so many of the ghost towns in South Carolina. First came the Great Depression. Then came changes in transportation. Better roads meant access to larger towns with cheaper prices. Eventually, rail passenger service discontinued, and ultimately the train didn't stop at all. In 1972, Charles Kuralt visited Fort Motte as part of CBS's On the Road series. He described what he found in the old town.
Drive through the South these days, and what impresses you is the transformation of the old cities like Columbia, South Carolina. Once a sleepy capital, now the throbbing center of a growing state, construction everywhere, new buildings, new people. 250,000 people live in Columbia and its suburbs, twice as many as lived here 20 years ago. But if you turn off the new superhighways onto the old roads, you discover the price that the small towns have paid for the big city's progress. For every Columbia, there are 100 Fort Mottes. Fort Motte sits on the Southern Railroad tracks only 35 miles from Columbia, but the trains don't stop anymore. If there were a Chamber of Commerce in Fort Motte, it would have only one member, Mrs. Lucille Arant. You make a good many penny sales, don't you?
If it wasn't for the pennies, I'd never get any dollars.
There isn't much in the way of business in downtown Fort Motte today, is there?
No, it's not. Only the post office and my place of business and another one on top of the hill. As the postmistress says, she stays there for me and I'll stay here for her. So we keep each other's company.
Only a store and a post office where once there was a town. Somebody bought W.G. Peterkin's grocery and is tearing it down, salvaging the bricks in the old building to build a brick house somewhere else. Next door was Dr. Burgess's drugstore, a handsome antebellum building which was the center of town life once. The building was later bought by Roy Arant, whose name is left on the broken glass. Roy Arant is gone. There was a bank run by J.J. Maynard. He is dead, and the bank long ago went broke. Weeds grow where L.M. Smith ran his furniture store and where Harvey Bozard sold liquor, 30 cents for a half pint of the best Red Rooster. And the old armory where the militia trained for the Civil War and the ladies knitted sweaters for the troops of the First World War is all wreckage and shadows now, beyond memory and beyond repair.
According to one longtime resident, quote, after World War II, the young people had been away, and some of them didn't want to come back to stay. Farmers began using new machinery and methods. Cotton was no longer king, and it was a changed way of life that left Fort Motte behind, close quote. Fort Motte is no longer a viable town. All of the general stores are closed, and the former town jail is overgrown. I've driven through the town several times on my way to various paddling destinations, and I love seeing the remains of the old town. The old jail is still there, along with one commercial building. The town's zip code is still on the old post office building. There are still town limit signs, but no real town. Northeast of town in an open field is a monument to Rebecca Motte's willingness to give up her home. It sits on private property and reads as follows, quote, "Site of Rebecca Motte's home, sacrificed for her country, May 12, 1786, Moultrie Chapter DAR, May 12, 1909, close quote. It looks like they got the year wrong, but at least Rebecca's name lives on. That's it for this week's Ghost Town. As usual, links to Rebecca Motte's history and other resources will be in the show notes. Next time, we look at another town that started out as a fort. Thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe and recommend the show to your friends.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.
Thanks for listening. The opening music was composed by Lex FM with additional music from Pixabay. The song Southern Ghost Town was generated by Suno AI. All other music was composed and recorded by me, Tom Taylor. Carolina Ghost Towns is a part of the Random Connections empire. It's pretty much a one-man show, so I wear all the hats, including producer, writer, researcher, sound engineer, publicist, and bartender. If you like the show, please subscribe on your favorite pod venue and be sure to give us feedback. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for the show, you can reach me at carolinaghosttownspod@gmail.com. For more information and show notes, visit randomconnections.com. Thank you.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.
Random Connections. Random Connections.
Random Connections.